Welcome everyone to Active Teaching Lab. So glad you were all able to join us today. Super excited. Today we're going to talk about improving our online discussions. So we're going to look at strategies for impactful asynchronous discussions. We're going to look at discussion examples from other instructors. So I'll have a few that I'll talk about today, but then there's a ton on the handout. And then we'll look at some examples of a discussion in Canvas just so I can show you, some tips for how to navigate between discussions, and then also how to look at a discussion when you're grading it and different tips for that. And then we're going to share our own innovations because you have probably run discussions in your own class, and we will really all benefit from hearing about some of the tips and tricks that you found or some of the things that just fell flat for you. So man, that was something I was thinking about. Now I know not to. So please do feel free. We'll be talking about that. And so please do share your own innovations or ideas or things that just didn't work in discussions a little bit later today. So when I was prepping for today, I was really kind of thinking about, look, why do we have discussion boards? It's often because we feel like they're a necessary tool inside of our classrooms. Right? That it's just something that we had in D2L. We've always just used discussion boards. Let's just keep using them, right? We're moving online because of COVID, and we had discussions in our face-to-face courses, and now we need to have them when we're online, right? Or maybe it's just because you think you need active learning, and discussions seem like an active learning component that you could use. So we sometimes get into this rut where we're just going to use discussion boards, and it's just kind of treated as an end to itself. We're going to have discussion boards. We want active teaching, or we just have always had discussion boards. And I think sometimes we get into a rut with that, and we just use them even when they aren't the best fit. And so discussion boards really, I thought, is really not a means. Discussions are a means to an end. Discussion boards are a means to an end. They aren't an end unto themselves. And so it's okay if we prune the number of discussion boards in our course. It's okay to even get rid of asynchronous discussion boards altogether if it's not serving your core course objectives. And this is coming to you in a session dedicated to asynchronous discussion boards. So it's okay to get rid of them. We can just start with a blank slate here. We need to think about strategies for what means are they going to perpetuate? How are they going to help us out? What are discussion boards going to do for us? And how can we create discussion boards that really help our students advance larger course objectives in our course? So today, for this week, then, I came up with some 8 strategies. Now, these 8 strategies that I was thinking of for discussion boards, they aren't the only only reasons you might have discussion boards. They're the only strategies you might use for using discussion boards, but they're just ones that I thought would be helpful in my own courses and hopefully for your own in terms of how you use discussion boards, how you can constitute discussion boards, how you think about discussion boards, how you employ them to advance your larger goals in your courses. So let's just go through a couple of those right now, and then we'll show some of the discussion boards that I've created and some examples of some rationales that other instructors have had as well. So one of the strategies that I found that I thought was just, bedrock was really one of the strategies I thought for better, more impactful discussion boards was really you need to align your discussions to course learning objectives, right? That's the bedrock, right? And so I have an instructor from the English department at UW-Madison. I used to work with him a lot, Dr. Zimmerman. And he had this really compelling kind of this narrative of his own development in using online discussions. He said, and I'm quoting here, "I have designed many undergraduate literature courses in my 18 years at UW-Madison on topics ranging from American dream literature to Imagine in the Apocalypse. The same question has guided the planning of them all. What do I want my students to be able to do at the end of the course that they can't do or do as well as at the start? So despite the variety of course topics and formats, my answers have always been the same. Whether they're reluctant readers and writers in large introductory lecture courses or English majors in more specialized upper level courses, I want my students to learn how to write original, compelling and consequential analytical arguments about the course literature, the cultural topics and concepts addressed by that literature. At the start of my teaching career, I would not have been able to articulate this answer as a goal of mine. I had only a vague notion of what writing skills I wanted my students to learn, and the weaknesses of my students' essays show this. It took me several years to identify these skills. For example, how to use textual data to support what I call staircase argument with any procession. However, once I could do this, I was able to design a sequence of writing activities and assignments built around these specific analytical and argumentative skills. I also reframed my lectures and discussion activities so that they self-consciously modeled and called attention to those skills. To make time for developing these skills in class, I also had to shelve some of the course content. I've never regretted this. So what I thought was really compelling about Dr. Zimmerman's work was, one, he really had to identify the learning objectives to make his discussions or any activities in his course impactful. Right? He had to really think about, what is it that I want my students to learn? And this is a really smart instructor. Really does a lot of great things in his course, but even he had a tough time at the beginning, years, in fact, identifying what those learning objectives were. He kind of had an idea, but he didn't identify them and write them down and let his students know what they were, right? And he didn't use those learning objectives to really think through the discussions that he assigned his students. And now once he did, allowed him to rethink those discussions, rethink his activities, and then really use those activities to focus on those learning objectives or skills, right? As a result, he had to drop material. The quality of the student work was better. So in other words, it's okay to drop discussions, even if that means less active teaching, right? If they are better and they advance the objectives, you're going to find better work from your students, and students are going to have a clear understanding of what to do, and they're going to be feeling more empowered to be able to kind of do their discussions in a way that is going to get a good grade, or is going to be what it is they kind of have an idea for what you're looking for. So let's go to strategy 2. Oh, Diane, I would love to answer that. Could you put that into this discussion, that Google handout, and we'll get to that, and somebody else can do as well. All right. The other thing as well that I really wanted to focus in on was providing detailed instructions to explain the purpose of each discussion as well. And students, in survey after survey, have really told us that clear instructions are crucial for them in terms of reducing stress, increasing a sense of control, right? That in turn, that improves their work in the classroom. Now, this can involve a rubric, which I'll talk about just in a second, but also just how you frame the discussions or the purpose of discussions, the purpose of writing in discussions at the beginning of the course. And this can be really important in terms of like a course that doesn't necessarily emphasize writing, but you want students to be able to write in a specific way. So this example that I have right here is from Dr. Michelle Harris and Dr. Janet Batsili in a BioCore course. And at the beginning of their course in the syllabus, they wrote the importance of discussions and talked about the importance of discussions and talked about the importance of writing in their course, which discussions were a critical component, right? So their students, when they're reading this, they understand then right away, why are they doing the discussion? What is the purpose behind this? Why is this important? Because a lot of times students feel that kind of active, especially active learning activities or things that you do, sometimes are just busy work, right? They don't understand the purpose, and it's really important to think about the purpose in our courses. So Dr. Harris said, we feel that this process is essential in your training as a scientist. Writing is essential. Discussions are essential to be able to communicate those arguments clearly. So having this in the syllabus is really important. It can help empower students. And then having this in your rubric as well. So rubrics are part of the instructions. And it doesn't have to be super complicated. This is a pretty basic rubric right here that doesn't have a lot of words, doesn't have a lot of things to it. But at the same time, it's communicating information to students as to what it is that you expect to them. The syllabus, the instructions may explain the why, and the rubric itself may give them a little bit of the how as well. So those are really important. The next item I really wanted to highlight is modeling good behavior. There's some debate on this. So some instructors really, favor modeling behavior in the discussion board. So if you want your students to have those impactful or meaningful conversations in their discussions that aren't just about the word limit, that's something that you should model in the discussion itself. What does it look like to have a meaningful discussion with your students? Modeling that can really be help in that. But there's some debate. Some instructors think that just is, sometimes that will lead students to really just rely on you for providing the right answer, and it kind of maybe will drown out some of the authentic conversations that students might be having themselves. So some instructors just say, hey, instead of modeling it throughout the discussion, provide an example of what an ideal discussion post looks like, right? What does it look like to have a good discussion post? And then not only to show them, just providing it, but walk students through what that example is about. What is that example doing well? And why did you select it? Why did you write it? Why are you using it? How that will help students know and do better in the discussions later on. Give the example and then explain that example as well. So it's the text and it's the visuals and the conversations. I'm going to jump to strategy 7. Strategy 7, utilize the discussion board as a venue to increase equity and accessibility of your course. Right? That's a really pertinent topic for today. Right? An asynchronous discussion has an entirely different dynamic than a synchronous discussion, and it's important to reflect on that. It allows your students to have time to think before they contribute to the class. It also doesn't favor those who are going to be predisposed to talk. Those students, those core group of students that are always in your course, they're the ones that are eager and happy to talk. It provides other students, a greater variety of students in terms of their background, or even if they have a disability. It provides them a platform that they can first collect their thoughts, think about what it is they want to say before they say it. And indeed, some instructors will actually merge the two, the synchronous and the asynchronous together. So they'll have a synchronous course component, so everyone meets together, but then they use asynchronous discussions during that course. My wife will do this in her Blackboard Collaborate session. She does study halls for preparing students for the test. And she has found that when she has the study halls and she just has everyone speaking and talking about the ideas of the course and going through the literature, that the conversations are dominated by a few people, that the discussions aren't as robust, they aren't as well thought. And so what she's done is she actually uses Blackboard Collaborate Ultra, and she'll speak and talk, but she'll ask that students only communicate synchronously or through text, right? Because it gives everyone, it makes the expectation of that synchronous session that you aren't going to speak, you're going to write it out, think through your answer, look it up, and then post it. It gives it a completely different dynamic. This instructor, Professor Margaret Price, what she does in her courses is she actually has a synchronous and an asynchronous going on at the same time. Christine, does my wife do this, use chat and Collaborate Ultra? Yes, she does. And actually, she was one of the last holdouts that used the old Blackboard Collaborate that was much more text focused because of that very reason. So she used the Collaborate Ultra, absolutely, chat for that. Professor Margaret Price, what she does is she has Collaborate Ultra, and then she also has, kind of like I do with my handout, and also with the chat as well, is that she has a blog space or a WordPress site. You could use whatever platform you want, just to where students are contributing and interacting asynchronously or through text, right? So asynchronous discussions isn't just about doing it, whenever you can over a couple of days. It can be about doing it together. But having that asynchronous can allow students to think through their ideas a little bit more, and gives a brighter variety of students an opportunity to talk. So I gave about 4 of the 8. And we'll come back to those in a moment. But I wanted to give an opportunity to us to first look at what this looks like in Canvas. So I've taught in Canvas before using discussions. I have an example actually when I was teaching in Madison, and I still have access to. Let's see. There we go. Excellent. Oh my goodness, Sarah, you're totally right. It helps to have a chat monitor to integrate the text into the conversations. And that's often what we, That's often what we have Ben or what we have Ed or what we have Kathy doing as well. Having somebody that's dedicated to looking at that chat monitor can be really helpful because it gives people, that way you aren't just always being interrupted every time you hear that ting or that bing in the background for Collaborate Ultra, or just if you're using a different platform, that chat line doesn't get broken up, or you actually refer back to it, which is really important. Thank you, Sarah, for mentioning that. So this is an example of a discussion that I had at UW-Madison when I was teaching graduate students about teaching online, and this was a discussion about discussions. It was kind of meta. So I just wanted to highlight a couple things, and I have some of the things that I was talking about. I have those on the handout. But this is the, let's see, I'll open this up a little bit so we can see it better. I wanted to kind of show you a little bit about the tool and more about navigating right now the discussion board itself. So right now you see at the top, I have a pretty extensive set of instructions. Again, I wanted to be clear to students what it was that I expected them to do. And this is a little bit more complicated and involved. And so I kind of laid it all out there. But one of the big things I'd point to in terms of section A is if you're going to have your students find information or content online, give them some resources that they can go to, that they can turn to find that material, so they aren't just going to Google and typing up the first thing that they find. So this is some really good resources that I've identified for the students that let them kind of know where they could find some discussion information. Then I have my three parts here, part A, B, and C. I have my learning objectives at the bottom. And then here's the posts, okay? We had some really good posts. Now they're graduate students, and so they're doing a really good job. But I wanted to show you a little bit about how to search and kind of navigate within this. The one thing that I really like is just looking at this bar right here. So one, you can search for a particular student if you want to look at that. This button right here will allow toggle on and off, just looking at those posts that you haven't seen before. Okay. And then this right here will collapse all the posts. So you just get a preview of them. It's really cool. So if I click on this, I really like looking at this because I always require every student to post before they can see. So every student pretty much has a post that they initiated. Okay. And so we can see everyone going all the way down right here. I really like this one here, so I can just jump in and say, oh, what did Kate have to say? She always had some good stuff. She was a fellow history student. And then if I click on the little triangle right here, it'll pop open just Kate's, and I can see everybody who responded to Kate. Right? And then if I want to go look at Jesse, I can see what Jesse had for his work. Right? So again, just collapse and then expand for the useful tool. The other one you want to look at as well is this little, that triangle is sneaky, absolutely. There was a couple days where I was like, I know you're supposed to be able to expand. How do you do that? And I had to go, eventually we found, oh, there it is, right there. You just got to hover just the right spot. This right here will let you see which post you haven't seen. So like, oh, okay, red is the post I haven't read yet. And then this is the number of posts within here. So there's Emma's, and I need to look at that a little bit more closely. You also have a counter up at the top, and you can see, okay, there are 38 posts. You can maybe not see this very well, but there are 38 posts or replies in this discussion, and there's 7 of them I haven't read. All right, so that gives you an outline of there. Subscribed. What's going on here? So let's look at notifications. So I'm going to click on my account, and we're going to go to notifications. This is pretty much the exact same platform. It just has a red bar instead of a black one. All right, so discussion. Right now, you're going to get notified, well, usually are by default, discussion topic in your course. This is not what controls the subscription right here. This is what right here. There's a new discussion post in a topic you've subscribed to. Turn this on, and then every discussion that you've subscribed to, right there, oops, there it is, you're going to get notified. So every time somebody was adding to this discussion, I was getting a notification in my emails. So that's what the subscribe does. All right. So that's looking a little bit at some of the navigation of this tool. let's look at grading this. So I'm going to click on the kebab, and this is where you could add your rubric. This is SpeedGrader right here as well. So you can access both of these under the ellipsis or the kebab next to edit. So I'm going to click on the kebab, click on show rubric. SpeedGrader. Are those navigational tools? Are these? Yes, the navigational tools. Thank you, Diane. The navigational tools are all available right here. It's just something we often overlook if you don't subscribe. If you created this discussion, so you can always jump in and jump out. If you don't want to get notifications about this, if you're running a lot of discussion posts and you don't really need to get subscribed to all of them, you can turn that off and you can still navigate and enter that because you're the teacher in that course. Great question, Diane. Thank you. I'm going to go back up to the kebab, click on SpeedGrader. So here is SpeedGrader inside of Canvas. And just looks slightly different because it's at Madison. It's still taking, I got to switch. Sorry, let me switch the screens that I'm sharing. Open up a new tab. So there we go. Yep, there we go. That's the right one. All right. So I'm going to open up a student that did participate. Okay. So here's Dania. There's her discussion posts right there. I can see all of the ones. Let's see, Ed or Ben, can you share with Sarah the link to the Google Doc for today? So this is, I can see both discussions posts right here that she's participated in. I can also look at her discussion within context of the entire discussion board. So I click on View Full Discussion. I can see everything in this discussion board. So I can kind of see it a little bit more in context. So it's not just isolated. And if I go to the next student, then it'll bounce back to just showing Rebecca right there, right? Or I can go down and, of course, jump around to the different students that I want to look at. Let's see. Again, let's see. There's Kate. Yep, there's Kate. She always participated a lot. So here we go. Some good stuff right there. And then I can open this up. Any questions about discussions inside of Canvas? I'll give everyone an opportunity. And then as you're maybe typing, I'm just going to say this is the rubric right here that I had. So you can pop that open, click it right there, and then use this to grade as well. I'm going to cancel. All right. So that's using the discussion inside of Canvas. I don't know if Ed, did you have anything you wanted to add with that?
No, I'm following along with you. Good. I'm answering a couple of things on the doc too. So
yes. Oh, thanks, Ben, as well. Students are auto-subscribed when they make their first post. Thank you very much. Yeah, absolutely. How do I track individual students? Okay, so I can track individual students, Bill, by using SpeedGrader. So I could just, I go to SpeedGrader and I can look at the student. I can always, when it's a graded discussion, I can always say, what is this? Dustin participate. Okay, there's some, I think I can see what Dustin did. You can also do that. I'm going to bounce back. I'm going to leave SpeedGrader now, and I'm going to go to the other. Oops, I have to flip between them, I'm afraid. And then if I want to do this outside of SpeedGrader, or maybe I'm not grading this, I can search here and type up Jesse. There you go. And then I can just follow that individual, look at that individual student and see what they're posting no matter where as well. Great question. All right. So, thumbs up, excellent. All right. So let's go. I'm going to look really quickly. I'm going to go back to that collaborative handout. And Ed, I want you to, can you break everyone up into groups of 3 or 4, whatever is useful, Ed?
Yep, give me 1 second.
Absolutely. There we go.
22, okay.
Okay. Lots of great questions today. Awesome, thank you. Let me find this. All right, So here is the 8 strategies that we had, right? So align all discussions to course learning objectives, provide detailed instructions that clearly explain the purpose of each discussion, model good behavior, or at least provide an example of an ideal discussion post, sequence your discussions, use discussion boards for meaningful collaboration, so collaborative discussion boards, employ asynchronous discussions as opportunities for self-reflection, and utilize the discussion board as a venue to increase equity and accessibility of the course, and use discussions to create crowdsourced content. Now, I have linked to all of these right here in the handout, and so you could just click on this, pop down to strategy 3, and look at that as well. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to open up discussion groups. We're going to put you all into groups, and I have some questions for you. And so I'll show you those. Let's see. Leave that, share application, and do group slides, share that one. Excellent. All right, so we have, I'm going to break you into groups, or Ed's going to break you into groups. So you're going to be assigned a group number, so you'll find that you're in group 1 or group 2 or group 3. I'm going to, thanks for coming, Derek. All right, so I'm going to share this. Copy that link. I'm going to put the link to the handouts right here. So once you get, so you can follow that link to the Google Handout whenever you're ready. Ed will put you into a group and then find the slide. So if you're in group 5, just go into group 5 and start. You can use that as a collaborative document within your group. But we want to look at these 3 questions right here in your group, and we're going to have 15 minutes to do that. Which of the 8 of these strategies do you think could be most impactful? What discussion strategy is missing from this list? So I put 8 on there, but there are obviously some other discussion strategies that there's a lot of other really important discussion strategies that I didn't talk about. What one do you feel is really important that's missing from that list? Why is it important? And then more broadly, thinking about strategies for online asynchronous discussions that you found in your own courses most useful, right? So talk about those in your group, those 3 questions. Which of those 8 those strategies do you think is most impactful or could be most impactful? What discussion strategy is missing? And what strategy for online discussion have you used? So discuss those in your group, and then we'll come back and talk about that a little bit more and kind of brainstorm together some strategies that I haven't thought about, but that you as fine teachers have done in your own class. So Ed, can you break us up and let's get going? Thank you so much for your participation today. You were all in discussion. I was looking over the collaborative document. So I'm just going to review a couple of those things right now. But the group leaders, the ones who volunteered to present, please kind of get your stuff ready. We'll run through some of the group responses of what you were thinking in a moment. So I was looking through the collaborative document. I was really struck by some of the questions, especially thinking about how do you get a meaningful interaction with students. How do you make discussions? It's a lot of these questions about meaningful. If there aren't any good response ideas, how do you get students to independently engage? Right? One of the things that I kept on seeing throughout the literature from different instructors around the country is that it's difficult to get students to collaborate together when they don't know each other, right? And you're thinking, well, that's great because we're in COVID and nobody's in class together. So how are they going to get to know each other? And one of the strategies that they were suggesting, because they were talking about this in context of COVID, was to practice. Have online discussion be a robust portion of your course. It's not just something you do every month, every other month, or maybe once every 2 weeks. It's something you do every week. Get students used to interacting with each other. Another suggestion was to put students into groups, smaller groups, and keep those groups kind of cohesive. So that way students kind of get used to each other, because that's often what they were finding when they're asking students later on. It's like, why were the discussions so superficial? Like, well, I feel like I knew people. I felt like I was kind of, alone just typing to this computer terminal. And the students that were successful were the ones that were interacting in a group setting more continuously. Now, this isn't a catch-all. It's one of those things that practice can really help. So doing it frequently and then helping to build community within those groups. So doing this more frequently, having those groups kind of more stable, and then having them come back and maybe report back to the larger groups, having some larger interactions. But kind of creating community and giving students an opportunity to practice was what people were finding would help students get more acclimated to each other and participating more in discussions. Again, Hillary is saying, I had students say they want to mix the groups up after a while because they want to hear from others. And that's another thing as well, is we can't please everyone all the time. Some students would give different impressions. So that's a different strategy right there. Thank you, Hillary, because that is one of those things that sometimes students do want to have things mixed up a little bit. So that was good. You assign different groups each week. So that's, yeah, different strategies right there. It just depends on maybe some of the goals that you're having. But that was one of those that I found online. But at least keep practice. We haven't heard any contradicting ideas for practicing. I think that's another good one, is just doing it more frequently will get people used to it. So maybe you have groups, maybe you mix up your groups, switch groups twice a semester, have them wake up every so often, but doing it more frequently seemed to be one thing that there was more agreement on. The other one as well is, how do I make this more like social media? And there's, yes, as well, Piazza is another great option. How do we make groups more like social media? That was a great response as well. That was a great one as well. Ben has it right there. We don't support it, but Piazza, some instructors will use social media to mimic some of the things that you could do on social media that you don't do online. That's not something that we definitely always recommend, but it's one of the things that other instructors do. Well, actually, let's just move on because I want to give us a little bit of time to talk about the group slide. So did any group want to present or just kind of share what they were talking about? Yes, Jamie, please go.
Okay, yeah. I'm trying to, here we go, share video. So yeah, I mean, we had some discussion, and I think one of the things we acknowledge is, I mean, this covered a lot of territory, and there wasn't necessarily a whole lot to expand beyond that we discussed, but we did identify the first point there about aligning discussions with learning objectives as being important, and also of the creating crowdsourced content as something that folks had success with. We also had a discussion, so one thing that maybe wasn't addressed here, because there was a point focused on asynchronous discussion, but we talked about some of the advantages and disadvantages of synchronous and asynchronous discussion, and that asynchronous discussions sometimes lack the sort of community building, making student connections, and that asynchronous can be a little disjointed or feel it doesn't have that real-time connection. And so we had a little discussion about how that's worked for different classes and discussions. And so some of the synchronous discussions seem to have worked well, and having a chat monitor and doing some of those kinds of things. So that was really our focus of the discussion.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that, Jamie. Unfortunately, my Mickey Mouse watch is telling me that it's 1 o'clock. And I see that Sarah is saying she has to go as well. So I'm going to wrap things up today. Have a great week, everyone. Take care.